Hey guys, how's it going? So, it's been a while since I put anything out, so I wanted to do an update of what I've been up to and what my plans are moving forward. And since this is something that was a catalyst for why I allowed myself to kind of fall into a slump and take some time off, not only with this, but with my exercises and diet, and something that comes up a lot within the natural law community as it directly relates to order followers, I thought I'd make it the subject of this video. So back in December, I had my car stolen. I was leaving to go to the gym before work, and I went outside to find it just gone. Not a very good feeling. Despite my views on order followers and police in general, I did still call the police, and I'll explain why. Even though I don't agree with the concept of police, I recognize the fact that they do exist, and if there's an instance where they can actually provide some value, I might as well make use of it. The odds of me locating my car on my own are much lower, and since my car is something that enables me to more efficiently travel from point A to point B, so I have more time left in my day to do things like research and make videos like this once in a while, I'm going to go ahead and take the help if I can get it. I realize some people are so adamantly opposed to the concept that they would never go to the cops for such a thing, and I can respect that. But think of it this way. The government is already robbing you, right? So what if you're carrying like $5,000 in your pocket because you're about to go buy a cheap car from a private party, and then someone mugs you and takes all your money? But for whatever reason, they decide they feel bad, and they throw you a couple $1,000s back saying something stupid like, "I'm feeling generous today." You aren't going to refuse to take that money back, are you? And just hand it back to them and be like, "No, I don't want to have anything to do with you, so I refuse to take back this money that you stole from me. You keep it." That would be insane. Well, it's the same principle here. The government is robbing us through all these various taxes they've imposed, to the point where even if we aren't filing taxes or whatever, we're still paying taxes every time we buy literally anything. And I don't have endless resources, so I'm going to hold on to what I can get while continuing to work to change the system until people realize the whole concept of taxes is immoral to begin with and something we can do without. At that point, if my car ever gets stolen, I'll have extra resources to contact a private investigator who specializes in this kind of thing rather than policy enforcers, which I did anyway, but I'll get to that later. Anyway, so I get up in the morning to go to the gym and my car wasn't there. If you've ever experienced that, there's nothing like it. I called the police and they had a guy come down and ask me a few questions. Then he lets me know that they pulled over a vehicle matching that description sometime in the middle of the night, but they took off. Right there was strike one. They had a chance to quickly recover my stolen vehicle, but they let the idiots get away. Then about 2 weeks later, I get a call from my insurance company saying they found my car. When I asked them when they found it, they said the police found it a week ago. But because of the way notifications work on their system, they didn't get the word until that day. So now I'm pretty pissed off. The cops very clearly stated that as soon as they heard anything at all, they would let me know. Meanwhile, I've been paying for a rental car that's costing me money every day that I don't have my car back. I call them and ask what the deal is, why they didn't call me like they said they were going to. They tell me they did call me a week ago when they recovered the car. I checked my missed calls, and sure enough, there were 2 missed calls about 10 minutes apart from the middle of the night. They never tried calling me back after that, during the day at a reasonable time when I might be likely to answer the phone. Half-assed attempt at contacting me, strike 2. Now I ask for more details about how they recovered the car. They told me the location, which was just down the street from where it was originally stolen. Okay, so you're telling me these jackasses were driving around in my stolen car for an entire week in the same damn neighborhood, and you didn't find them until then? And how did they recover the car? They noticed the idiots were driving around on a flat tire, so they attempted to pull them over. As soon as the car stopped, everybody, this is in the cops' words, everybody got out and ran. They didn't catch one person. Strike 3. or 4, I don't even know at this point. So they called the towing company and had them come pick up the car. That's literally the only service they provided to me. A phone call to the towing company. Literally anyone could have done that. And we're paying all this money in taxes so they can have all these resources to locate stolen property, conduct investigations, etc. But this is all that came of it. Thanks for nothing, assholes. And I made a little side note here in my notes that, someone can make the argument, well, they pulled them over, so they did something, not just anybody did that, but did they really do that? What is actually happening when a cop pulls you over? Why do you stop? You stop because, this is a conditioned response, because we live in a society that is under the understanding that if a cop pulls you over, you're supposed to stop, because otherwise there will be what? Violence or coercion. So, they didn't set those rules into place. They're just benefiting from it. It's making their job a hell of a lot easier, isn't it? So, yeah. Alright. So, I did get my car back after dealing with repairs to fix the damage done during the theft and from driving on a shredded tire. And between repairs, the rental car, and my personal items that were also stolen from the car and never recovered, the whole thing ended up costing me around $2,000. Plus the fact that it just really threw everything off in my life. I started skipping the gym and just being lazy, not caring about my diet, not really doing research like I was before. And this whole thing happened right before the holidays, a time when I normally already take some time off and be lazy, and now I was depressed on top of it. So yeah, it really threw me off. I gained like 25 pounds, and it took a long time to generate the will to get everything back on track, which I'm finally doing. And I'm not going to lie and say I couldn't have done better and not let it affect me to such a great extent, because that was my doing as well. I'm not here to make excuses. It happened and I got to move on. Anyway, one thing I wanted to go over is the value that could have been provided to me had the cops actually done what they were supposed to and caught these pieces of shit who thought it was okay to damage and steal someone else's property. And I'm going to try to look at this from a natural law or voluntarist perspective. I'm not going to mince words here. When my car was stolen, I wanted a piece of these people. I'm not a violent person, and I don't think it solves anything, but I wanted to beat the fucking shit out of them and put them in the hospital. Now, I don't know if it came down to it, if I would have actually gone through with it, as again, I'm not really a violent person. But at the very least, I want to look them in the face and let them know how despicable they are for thinking it's okay to wrong someone else like that. And ask if they ever considered how their actions were affecting someone else. I wanted it so bad that when I found out that the moron cops let these people go not once but twice, I did call a private investigator in order to try and find out who they were. I had the address of the intersection where the vehicle was recovered, and the PI suggested I find out if there were any businesses there that had surveillance cameras to see if anyone that jumped out of the car could be identified. I drove down there and actually did find an apartment complex that had cameras, got the number for the landlord, left a message, but they never got back to me. The PI also wasn't much help, and they made it sound like they couldn't really do anything more than the police had done, and for the amount of money it would have cost me on the off chance that they might generate a lead, it wouldn't have ended up being worth it. So I'll probably never know who it was. The question I want to ask here is, how do you think this would be handled from a voluntarist perspective had the cops been able to catch these people? The transgression against natural law has already been committed, i.e. my property was stolen. By rights, these people owe me around $2,000. Plus, I'd say a little extra for the time and grief they caused through this whole ordeal. So, what if I were to say, okay, I want you to pay me back the $2,000 plus, say, $500 for my time and everything else in order to make this right? If they agree and they do so, that's the end of the transaction, right? The government doesn't have any right to hold them unless they want to make the argument, well, we spent this and this amount of resources between manpower, gas, etc., in recovering the vehicle. But if this were a voluntarist system, I'd be the one paying them directly for providing that service. So I just add that cost to the amount that I would ask for from the offending party. Let's just make it an even $3,000 then, just to keep it simple. You pay me $3,000 and we're done here. I may not want to shake your hand, and if you ever come to me asking for a favor, I'll probably laugh in your face. But I would consider the debt paid and we have no further business. But what if they just say, well, I don't have the money, which is to be expected. The government is out of the equation here. So them sitting in jail is doing nobody any good. Not only is it not getting my money back, it's also costing money to keep them there, which in the current system is something we are expected to pay for. Plus, if they don't have the money now, how are they supposed to get the money if they're sitting in a jail cell? Now, some of you might disagree on this point, but let's imagine this scenario. I've paid this private investigator / security team to catch this person / persons who stole my car. They do so and deliver them to me. I pay them. Our transaction is complete. Since I believe in the right of self-defense, and since this person has committed an act of violence against me by stealing and damaging my property, I'm now holding them at gunpoint as we deliberate over how we're going to resolve the matter. Obviously, me shooting them is in neither of our best interests, because not only is that not going to get my money back, but I could potentially be liable for a much greater debt if I were to kill them or injure them to a degree that the $3,000 debt could not cover if it came down to medical bills. So the gun at this point is just an insurance policy should they try to run or even initiate physical violence onto me, which I don't put past them since they've already initiated violence against me by stealing and damaging my property. We have a couple options here, and maybe you can think of more. That's the beauty of a voluntarist system. There are limitless ways a situation can be handled, only depending on the creativity of those involved. So what if I say, well, when will you have the money? They might say, look, stealing cars isn't my sole source of income. I actually have a job. I was just doing it to help pay for this or that, but I can give you half the money next week when I get paid and the other half 2 weeks after that. I already don't trust this person, so I probably won't take their word for it. So I ask for some collateral. I need something greater than or equal to $3,000 in value, and I'll hold on to that until I get my money. This has to be agreed upon by both parties. So if they say, here, you can have my Pokemon card collection. There's lots of rare cards in there. You could easily get $3,000 for it. I might say, no thanks, I'm not in the business of selling Pokemon cards, nor do I have the time to look up all these cards, find out what they're actually worth, and find buyers for them. What else do you have? You know, he starts listing some things, and I say, okay, I'll take that, and that, whatever it is. It really doesn't matter as long as it's worth that to me, so that if I never get my $3,000 back, I'll still feel like I have something of greater or equal value that maybe I could sell to get my money if I wanted to. That's one option. Another option might be to have him work it off. What if I own a small business and I say, okay, if you agree to work for me for this and this amount of hours within said time frame, I'll consider the debt paid. I'm still going to need some kind of assurance that he's going to follow through, though. Maybe if I tell him to give me a small deposit of like $500 or something of equal value, enough that if he doesn't follow through and tries to run, I can hire the same guy who's already found him once before to track him down, with the understanding that if it comes down to that, there's going to be some physical repercussions involved. What if he refuses, though? Well, I don't know. What would be the medical bills for a bullet wound to the arm or the leg? Or maybe I knock out a couple teeth or give him stitches. This is starting to sound like some mafia shit now, isn't it? In all reality, a lot of what the mafia does isn't necessarily immoral, depending on how you look at it. I mean, that could actually be the subject of another video, but real quick I'll explain why. No, I do not advocate killing and don't think that any amount of money owed should ever give someone the right to take a human life. And as far as all the leg breaking, etc., this is all fear tactics. They're also operating in a very high risk capacity because at any time they could be put in jail and lose everything, so the stakes are high. But there's nothing inherently wrong with selling drugs or loaning people money with high interest rates, provided it's a voluntary transaction agreed on by both parties. It may not be the smartest thing to do, but if you aren't harming anyone else, it's within your right to do so. Anyway, back to our scenario. This person refuses to give me the money and refuses to give me collateral. We're at a standstill. How would you handle this? I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I'm sure I could come up with more possible solutions. Do I decide to just beat the shit out of him because it makes me feel better? Or forfeit the debt? Do I go to his house and help myself to $3,000 worth of his valuables, assuming he even has it? Or do I throw my hands up in frustration and tell him to get the hell out of here if I ever see him again? I reserve the right to shoot him in the ass. We could really go on and on with this such a scenario, and I think one thing people forget is that we do have systems in place to handle such matters, which could still be utilized in a voluntarist system. The biggest difference being the voluntary aspect of it. For instance, under common law, which is, as far as the legal system goes, is as close to natural law as any man-made system is going to get, it's only unlawful if there is an injured party, meaning if you've hurt a person or their property or broken a contract. You can have a trial by jury, which by law is actually the only real trial you can have, everything else being commerce. So let's say I'm like, fuck it, and beat his ass. He goes to the hospital, and it ends up costing him $3,500. Were we to go in front of a jury, and I've already proven he had a debt to me in the amount of $3,000, they might say, well, now you owe him $500. Now when I pay him $500, our business is concluded. You might say, but without the police, who would enforce all this? Well, I just laid out how a lot of it would be enforced. You have private security / private investigators taking place of the police. You've eliminated the jails because they're serving no real purpose in this scenario and doing nothing to settle the debt. You have a jury of your peers instead of a judge, and both parties have agreed to willingly accept whatever conclusion the judge comes up with. Maybe you'll agree that the loser also pays the jury for their time, or maybe you both agree to split the cost of the jury. Everything still works on an energy exchange, just like it does today, but we're only paying for the services we actually use. You know, back in the day, you had bounty hunters too, and they're still around, but much harder to find. Trust me, I looked. So if this person owes you money, maybe you offer the bounty hunter a percentage to hunt them down for you. With all those elements in place, we really wouldn't need police. You could even have companies that will do all the work for you, much like our so-called justice system claims to do, but without all the bureaucracy and corruption. Because, of course, if they fail to provide the agreed-upon service, they don't get paid or they lose business. No one would have a monopoly on these services like the government does today, so there would be an incentive for everyone to do their job to the best of their ability, lest someone else step up who can do it better. You pay them a flat fee and they take care of everything. They find the person in the lost vehicle, they negotiate repayment, they handle any required hearings, etc., and you go on about your day. Yeah, no system is going to be perfect, but if you can tell me for a second that our current system is, then you're deluding yourself. Anyway, these are all hypothetical scenarios, but I think you'd probably agree are valid solutions to what some would consider the problem of how we could still maintain order and civility in a society without government. Once again, there's no set way to do this, and there could be limitless solutions. The only constraint being the will and creativity of the people working to solve these problems. I hope I've adequately explained why we could have a much more effective system than we do today without the need for government or endless bureaucracy. Now, I want to move on from this and go into some of the things I have planned moving forward. I looked at the last video on my channel, and it's been a full 4 months since I put anything out. So I really want to get back into it. I've been spending a lot more time during my workday listening to educational materials in the background involving things like voluntarism, natural law, conspiracy, the occult, etc. And I'm planning on doing a lot more reading during my off time. I just ordered this book, Anarchy in the Law, The Political Economy of Choice by Ed Stringham from 2007. So I'm looking forward to digging into that and discussing some of my thoughts and takeaway. I'd also like to do more videos where I talk to other people involved within the truth community and have some fun and enlightening conversations like I did with Nemo Jones. And of course, this is something I can't ignore. I'd like to get back to work on part 2 of my Incomplete History of Satanism series. I know the last you guys heard on that, I'd said I didn't know how long it would be, and that I'd be happy if I could get it done in a month, but if not, I'd probably do another video. Well, that obviously didn't happen, but here I am doing another video, just much later than anticipated. This is why I don't like to make promises on time frames for projects. I like to keep my word, so I am still planning on finishing part 2, but I have no idea when. One challenge I've had is the subject matter is very contentious, and I'm trying to deal with what some would call primary sources, which in a nutshell are what most would recognize as official and not contest, even though some of the information may not be coming from viewpoints they'd agree with. And surprise, surprise, it's very difficult to find anything to officially confirm the activities of some of these ancient cults, partly because record keeping was spotty at times, but also because many of these would fall more along the lines of mystery schools whose dealings were intentionally kept secret from the public. So this is a challenge, and I want to put out some good content that gives more than just surface level knowledge on this stuff, so the research may take a while. I've also considered experimenting with the format I'm using on the series, which I may implement as soon as part 3. Things like adding actual audio and video clips and maybe even some effects rather than just basically a slideshow. To be effective at reaching people, we have to keep evolving after all. Eventually, when and if I do finish the series, which based on my outline so far would be at least 12 parts, I'd like to do a movie-length cut that kind of takes the highlights of each one. When will that be? I don't know. At this rate, maybe 10 years? Hopefully not. I'd like to get it done at least before Agenda 2030 takes full effect. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I haven't abandoned it. I've just been taking some time off, but it's still on my radar. The video is probably getting pretty long at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and end it now. I want to thank everyone for watching and for the likes and subscribes. You guys are the reason we do things like this, and I encourage you to not only keep supporting content creators, but continue your own education and get out there and start producing some content of your own. The more voices we have out there spreading these messages, the closer we come to reaching enough people to make an impact. So have a great weekend and take care.